A crackdown on corruption or a wider power struggle in Turkey? High-profile figures close to the Prime Minister are arrested, and senior police officers involved in the sweep are sacked. It's exposing fundamental fault lines which could change the face of Turkish politics. This is Inside Story. Hello there and welcome to the programme. I'm Shuli Ghosh. Turkey's Prime Minister has described it as a dirty operation against his government. Others are viewing it as the most audacious challenge yet to Tayyip Erdogan's rule. An investigation into alleged corruption has seen scores of people close to the government arrested. In turn, the government has sacked the police chiefs behind the arrests. The whole affair has focused attention on the feud between Erdogan and the powerful cleric Fethullah Gulen, whose network of followers hold influential positions in institutions from the judiciary to the police to within government ministries. The Prime Minister has accused the network of trying to create a state within a state.
Those who are receiving the support of financial circles and the media cannot change the direction of this country. Those who are supported by dark circles from inside and outside the country cannot change the direction of Turkey. The ones who are backed by dark internal and external forces cannot change the direction of Turkey. Turkey is not a country that can have operations or surgeries performed on it.
Well, I'll introduce our panel in just a moment. First, Anita McNaught has this report from Istanbul.
It's been a parade of powerful and wealthy people all on their way to interrogation and detention. No charges yet, but allegations of bribes for major urban construction projects, illegal development of historic sites, document forgery and multi-million-dollar cash and gold transactions. Suspects include the general manager of the state Halkbank, the mayor of Istanbul's Fatih district, prominent business people, and the sons of at least 3 cabinet ministers.
This would be a serious blow to the government because their image has always been that they've been the cleanest party.
Turkish Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan responded angrily to the corruption probe, calling it a dirty operation by gangs within the state.
The first reaction from the government side has been to suspend the 5 senior police officers most closely involved in the corruption investigation, some of them working from this headquarters behind me. According to the official statement, they're now accused of malpractice.
And since then, media reports say the government suspended a total of at least 40 police for, it says, abusing their power. Something else is going on in Turkey, alongside allegations and counter-allegations of corruption. That something else is the movement led by this man, Muslim leader Fethullah Gulen, who's lived in exile in the United States since 1999. His education foundation has helped Turkish influence around the world and built him a respected power base at home. His movement, Hizmet, used to back the ruling AK Party. Columnist Aslı Aydın-Taşbaş explains many of Fethullah Gulen's former students joined the police and judiciary, extending his influence. Now that relationship with the government has broken down.
This was an alliance between Gülenists and it was a power alliance of some sort, and now it's a power struggle. Whether or not this is a fight for reform or democracy is something else.
Only a careful analysis of the evidence will prove if these prosecutions are politically motivated or not. And it looks like there's a lot more evidence and scandal to emerge. Anita McNaught, Al Jazeera, Istanbul.
Well, let's introduce our guests. In Ankara, Taha Ersan, Director of SETA, the Foundation for Political, Economic and Social Research, a Turkish-based international think tank. Joining us from our London studios is Fadi Hakura, Associate Fellow at Chatham House, specialising in Turkish politics. And in Istanbul, we have Barçın Yinanç, op-ed editor at the Hürriyet Daily News. Good to have all 3 of you on the programme. Barçın, let me start with you. talking about these allegations of corruption amongst those who are close to Erdogan. How damaging is that for the AK party? Because they have this reputation, or they want to maintain this reputation, as a clean party.
Well, correct. For years, I think one of the reasons why they were so successful at the ballot box is because they have tried to give the image that they are a corrupt-free party, and that some cases emerged and they took action about this corruption stories. However, I do not recall any case in the past which has involved so many, let's say, relatives of the ministers at the very same time. So certainly it is going to be very damaging for a political party, in view of the fact that triple elections are approaching, one in very near future in March, local elections, and local elections obviously are very much related to some of the cases involved with the allegations, especially with the urban development projects. And then we will have presidential elections, and it's no secret that the Prime Minister Erdogan is mulling to become a candidate, and later on, of course, in 2015 there will be general elections. So with triple elections on the horizon, certainly the scope especially and the magnitude of the allegations will certainly make the AKP very uncomfortable.
Taha, do you agree with that? Because Erdogan's certainly not happy, is he? He sacked a number of police chiefs, including the Istanbul commissioner.
I mean, in the past also, the governing party faced with some kinds of corruption charges. They had blazed through these kind of allegations, and investigations took place, for example, in Ministry of Energy, and plenty of bureaucrats arrested. First time Erdogan is reacting a corruption investigation with these words, calling it a dirty operation. There are three reasons for that. First of all, the content. This current operation is not a single file. There are plenty of different and distinct, has nothing to do with each other, actors and the files being investigated in the same day, which created the atmosphere as if all of them were related.
Yeah, there's actually three different investigations, isn't there?
Yes, that's quite important. I mean, there are around 50 people which is in this investigation, and almost all of them has nothing to do with each other. There are different files, all of them investigated in the same day. So that creates some suspicion. Another suspicion is the timing, because as it is leaked yesterday, the investigation, most of the investigation has already finished 6 months ago. So those investigation files were waiting somewhere to make this image yesterday. And the last thing is the meaning, as just Barchin said, is it going to directly affect on local elections or not? Definitely. If it is going to be seen as the corruption case, solely a corruption investigation, it will. But there are plenty of questions, as Prime Minister and other actors and the media, and especially international media, questioned that a parallel state, illegal gang, state within state kinds of questions. So the meaning, timing and the content is under suspicion.
Okay, well, let's talk about the meaning and the timing. Fadi, all of which is leading to the allegations that this is being orchestrated by a man who used to be an ally of Erdogan, Gulen, who is being accused of manipulating a corruption investigation to attack the ruling party.
The Gulen movement and Prime Minister Erdogan did have an informal alliance in the early years of the AKP's rule, of the Justice and Development Party's rule, to defeat the military and the secular establishment. That common enemy has now disappeared. The military now is under full civilian control. So, and at the same time also, the economy in Turkey now has changed. The economy now in Turkey is very slow. It's no longer growing at 7-8% like it did a few years ago. So the pie is shrinking, and the common enemy has disappeared. So it's not a surprise that the two very, very powerful groups are fighting it out now very, very openly.
OK, well, let's just give our viewers a little more information about this escalating feud between Erdogan's AK party and his former ally. That's Fethullah Gulen, the influential leader of a moderate Islamic group known as Hizmet. Now, Gulen has lived in self-imposed exile in the US since 1999. Gulen's movement is known for its network of hundreds of schools in more than 140 countries across Africa, the Middle East, Asia and the US. But it's in Turkey where its power really lies. Gulen followers serve in institutions including the police, the judiciary, the media, even the AK party itself. Now, Gulen, as we've just heard, previously backed the AK party to 3 successive election victories. But that relationship seems to have gone sour. Erdogan's recent move to shut down private schools run by the Hizmet movement was seen as a declaration of war on Gulen. Fadi, just take us through why Gulen was so important to Erdogan in the past. I mean, would he have won those elections without help?
I think that it's very difficult to say. We don't have hard evidence to show the level of popularity of the Gulen movement and what impact it made to Prime Minister Erdogan's 3 successive general election victories. And no doubt, the participation of the alliance of the Gulen movement with Erdogan was very, very effective. It did garner perhaps 1 or 2, perhaps 3% extra votes for Prime Minister Erdogan. And crucially, it was critical in defeating the military and the secular and the previous secular establishment that were the principal opponents to Prime Minister Erdogan and the Gulen movement.
So why have the 2 men fallen out? Barench, is this something that stemmed from last year, was it? That there was some controversy over the intelligence chief that Erdogan wanted to appoint, and Gulen is accused of trying to block that.
Well, actually, it's a power struggle. As Fadi had said, the 2 had joined forces in order to fight, quote-unquote, the common enemy. Now, the common enemy being the military, judicial, staunchly Kemalist, secularist elite in Turkey. Since they have weakened, now they don't have this common ground to meet. And now it's about whose weight is going to carry more on certain policy decisions. Actually, one of the areas where the 2 had parted their ways was actually relations with Israel. The Gulen movement was critical of Turkey's stance on straining relations with Israel. On the other hand, the Turkish government, the AKP, had become anxious of the increasing weight of the Gulen movement in institutions like the police and the prosecution service. Therefore, it had chosen to fight back, let's say, quote unquote, by strengthening the National Intelligence Agency. Moreover, the 2, my understanding, are also diverging on how to handle the Kurdish issue, while the AKP is more prone for a reconciliation. My understanding is that the Gulen movement was critical of the government sitting down and talking with the PKK, and that's why there was this case with the head of the National Intelligence Service, which had established dialogue with the PKK. But these are sub-headings. Basically, at the macro level, it's a power struggle. It's about whose weight will carry more. And obviously, the fact that the Prime Minister has shown no appetite lately, that he does not want to share power, the fact that he has gotten 50% of the vote makes him probably less dependent on the support of the Gulen movement.
Do you agree with that, Taha? It's a power struggle between these two men, and if so, why now?
I mean, the why now is a quite good question. It's related also what I said about the investigation, the corruption investigation. Why investigation, which is already completed 6 months ago, just launched 2 days ago? It's related to your question, because the debate comes from last month when government moved through shutting down preparatory schools for universities. A big debate occurred in Turkey, but it was just one dynamic between government and this Gulen group, as Barçın just pointed out. What are the differences? The problem is who are this Gulen movement? How do they define themselves? They call themselves as a civil society or NGO organization.
But they're hugely
but
influential, aren't they?
they
seem, some people are putting their numbers at millions within the judiciary, within the police, within the security system, within the government itself.
There is no evidence on that. I mean, we cannot call it like that, as yesterday Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister talking about a parallel state, even a gang within state, illegal organization. These are the words they use, but they also refuse to call this group exactly with those names. We will see what will happen in coming days, but the problem is this group and its media organizations are jumping in these investigations, as it happened in 2012 when the investigation was about to start against Chief of the Intelligence. And the image coming out of those media actors, that group is somehow connected with, or informally connected with, these politically motivated moves. When it comes to elections, I believe elections will go through. If this is going to be a proved corruption case, AK Party will get its damage, whatever it is. But through Gulen movement, we cannot easily say that can directly change the direction of elections.
Well, let's see what Fadi thinks. So the question is, Fadi, just how influential is the Gulen movement? And if they chose to mobilise their supporters, could they change the direction of the local elections coming up in March?
I think that we should understand why has Prime Minister Erdogan been popular in Turkey. And he has been popular in Turkey because of the economy. The economy was growing quite quickly. Consumption was proliferating. The middle classes were doing well. So Prime Minister Erdogan earned a lot of votes. Now the economy is slowing down. So what will determine Prime Minister Erdogan's popularity at the ballot box will not necessarily be these corruption cases that we're seeing today, but rather the state of the economy in the local elections come March 2014, the presidential elections August 2014, and general elections 2015.
Taha, you wanted to make a comment on that?
Yeah. I mean, look, in the last local elections in 2009, economy was very important because after long years of big growth rates, it was the first time in 2009 economy was decreased 4.7%. So minus 4.7 growth happened first time. But this year, forget about the economy is doing bad. Actually, it's comparatively doing very well. It's around 5% growth. It's doing very good in Europe, and it's doing very good.
But this is the year we've seen anti-government protests take place, Taha. I mean, there is also this concern that Erdogan is becoming more authoritarian and interfering more in private life.
Look, I mean, these are different things. You can talk about this. I mean, the protests, other things, but I'm talking about economy, and that authoritarian thing is another issue. You can talk about it. But when it comes to economy and the ordinary individual living with that economy is doing good. But the protests, authoritarianism, these are different issues.
OK, let me bring Berinç in. Do you think that, or is there a feeling, an opinion in Turkey that this power struggle between the Gulen movement and Erdogan's party could be impacted at the elections? We could see some, I mean, for example, if Gulen supporters threw themselves behind the opposition, could that have an impact on the elections?
Well, I'm convinced that even the Turkish society must be thinking that there's an interesting timing to it. Yes, there are elections, and the fact that 3 different cases have been joined at the same time and has been put public at the same time will create the impression in the public that there's a special timing to it, that it's very organized. I'm sure Prime Minister and the government government, and they have already started to talk about a complot, the plot theories against them. So I am again convinced that some of the very basic core supporters of the AKP will not leave the party. I think they would buy the argument that there is a conspiracy and plot against the government. But on the other hand, I think there will be another bulk of the society which would also question what's going on. And there are 2 points which we should not miss, and some of the neutral observers are trying to underline that. 2 things. First, we need to approach it from the point of international standards of rule of law. If there is corruption, then that should be cleaned off. They should be accountable, and if the ministers are implicated, then they should not be immune to that. And second, it's a protection of human rights and fair judicial trials.
Well, let me just tell our viewers what Gulen himself says. He denies he's had any hand in the corruption probe against Erdogan's allies. A statement from his lawyer reads, "The Honourable Gulen has nothing to do with and has no information about the investigations or the public officials running them." Fadi, what we do know is that Erdogan has been taking attack against Gulen. He's been trying to close down the prep schools where Gulen is said to get his influence. Is that being seen as an open declaration of battle against Gulen?
If we look at the pro-Gulen media, we can see that since Prime Minister Erdogan announced plans to close down the prep schools, the Gulen movement has taken it as a threat, as an existential threat, as kind of a nuclear attack against the Gulen movement, and the extremely vociferous opposition against the Prime Minister's plans. So yes, they do see this as a declaration of war, and this war seems to be now intensifying in the public.
We're coming towards the end of the programme, and I want to ask each of my guests how you think this power struggle is going to play out, particularly with the Prime Minister Erdogan hoping to get the presidential post in August. Let me ask Taha first. How do you think that this is all going to play out?
I think the Prime Minister, either today or tomorrow, he's going to give his decision on those ministers. Probably he's going to fire those ministers. And there we are also expecting a ministerial change next week. So I think all of them will be combined and those ministers will leave their posts. Then he will do 2 things at the same time. As he did in the past. He will go after corruptions and fully investigate what's happening, as they stated yesterday. At the same time, they are going to deal with this, what they call parallel state or state within state. If these things go through, I think he is not going to have, let's say, existential problem during local elections, especially presidential elections, because it's not only one-sided thing.
Okay.
It's one side is problems Erdogan is currently facing.
Okay.
The other side is who is the alternative? Who is the alternative?
Well, let me ask Fadi the same question. Do you agree with that? Do you think that Erdogan will be able to tackle what he calls this state within a state, or is Gulen simply too powerful?
I think that Prime Minister Erdogan does have the state resources, a state apparatus to really to drag this fight going forward. The question is, what impact will it have on Prime Minister Erdogan and on the broader the Islamic movement in Turkey? I think that the outcome of this battle will tarnish and lead to some poisonous divides within the Islamic movement, and that could undermine popularity for the movement going forward.
Okay, and the same question to Barench. And it's interesting that we're talking about this man when he's actually orchestrating all of this from thousands of miles away in the US.
Well, that's one of the problems. Actually, the government tried to make a differentiation with the person in United States and with the followers. I mean, we need to be careful that the government never directly targeted Fethullah Gulen, but they have been critical rather of his followers. Now, there are tremendous rumors going around. The problem is some are saying that the Prime Minister, and we know from the past that he has this fighting back nature, that normally Prime Minister could fight back more forcefully, but he is not sure what type of information the Gulenists might have, because things have gotten pretty ugly in the past with a tremendous smear campaign. So things could get a bit ugly between the two.
OK, we're going to have to leave it there. It was a really interesting discussion. A big thank you to all my guests, Taha Erzan, Fadi Hakura and Barcin Yinanc. And thank you for watching. So what did you think? Who did you agree with? Who did you vehemently disagree with? Send us your feedback at facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. From the whole team here, bye for now.